God rarely begins with destruction. He begins with discomfort. Long before things collapse, before relationships shatter, before peace disappears, there is a subtle unrest that settles into your spirit. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is a quiet unease you cannot explain, a heaviness that comes without warning, a sense that something is not right, even when everything looks fine on the surface. This discomfort is not punishment. It is mercy. It is God's way of interrupting your comfort before comfort turns into complacency, and complacency turns into destruction. Many people ignore this moment because it doesn't feel urgent. But heaven knows that what is ignored early must be confronted later at a much higher cost. When God warns through discomfort, He speaks to the conscience before He allows consequences to speak through pain. You may feel restless in places that once felt safe. You may lose peace in environments you once enjoyed. Conversations begin to feel draining. Situations that used to excite you now leave you empty. This is not confusion. It is discernment awakening. God is shifting something inside you because staying the same would eventually cost you everything. Discomfort is often the first sign that you have outgrown a space that will soon become dangerous if you remain. Most people pray for clarity, not realizing that discomfort is clarity in its earliest form. Before God exposes danger, He removes peace. Before He allows destruction, He sends warnings through unease. The problem is that discomfort doesn't scream, it whispers, it nudges, it waits. And because it doesn't force you, it requires humility to listen. Pride dismisses discomfort as overthinking. Fear numbs it. Distraction silences it. But wisdom leans in and asks, what is God trying to show me that I'm refusing to see? There are moments when nothing external is wrong, yet something internal refuses to settle. That tension is sacred. It is God alerting you that a door you are standing in will soon close violently if you don't walk away willingly. He is giving you time to adjust, time to repent, time to move, time to change direction. Discomfort is God slowing you down so you don't run straight into destruction with confidence. Many people mistake God's silence for approval, not realizing that His warning is not always spoken. It is felt. That loss of peace at night, that heaviness before making a decision, that inner resistance when you try to justify what you already know is wrong. God is not condemning you. He is protecting you. But protection only works when it is obeyed. Ignored warnings don't disappear. They escalate. The tragedy is that people often wait for pain to confirm what discomfort already revealed. They wait until betrayal happens, until collapse comes, until consequences arrive, and then they say, I should have listened. God warned you, but He did it gently first. He did it quietly. He did it lovingly. Discomfort was the signal. Destruction was never the desire. If you are feeling uneasy right now, if something in your life no longer brings peace the way it once did, don't rush to silence it. Don't numb it. Don't explain it away. That discomfort may be the very thing standing between you and irreversible loss. God does not warn to frighten you. He warns to save you. And the question is not whether God is speaking. The real question is whether you are listening. Discomfort intensifies when it is ignored. What begins as a quiet nudge slowly becomes a persistent pressure. Because God does not abandon His warnings, He deepens them. When the first whisper is dismissed, the message does not change, but the volume does. That uneasy feeling you once brushed aside returns more frequently. The restlessness grows heavier. The joy fades faster. This is not life becoming harder. It is God becoming clearer. He is narrowing your tolerance for what will soon destroy you if you stay too long. Many people assume that if something were truly dangerous, God would make it obvious. But God's warnings are often relational, emotional, and spiritual before they are catastrophic. He exposes danger through discomfort because discomfort gives you a choice. Destruction removes it. God prefers correction over consequences, but correction requires humility. The longer discomfort is ignored, the more your spirit resists peace in places that are misaligned with your purpose. That resistance is not rebellion. It is divine interference. You may notice that your prayers feel blocked when you remain in places God is calling you out of. Not because God has left, but because He refuses to bless what He has already warned you to leave. Comfort disappears where obedience is delayed. That inner conflict you feel is not confusion. It is alignment struggling against compromise. God will not force you to move, but He will make staying uncomfortable enough that you can no longer pretend everything is fine. Discomfort also exposes attachments that have quietly replaced discernment. You may stay because it feels familiar, because you've invested time, because walking away feels like failure. But God sees the future cost of your loyalty. What you call patience may be permission for destruction to grow unnoticed. God disrupts your peace not to punish you, but to detach you from what is slowly eroding your spirit. When discomfort shows up repeatedly, it is often because the danger is closer than you think. God warns most intensely when destruction is near. He doesn't wait until the collapse. He warns while escape is still possible. That inner alarm is heaven's mercy. But many people misinterpret it as anxiety, weakness, or fear, and they medicate the very signal meant to save them. What you suppress today may be the very thing that would have spared you tomorrow. There is a reason why you feel drained after certain interactions, why certain environments leave you spiritually exhausted, why your joy evaporates the moment you engage with specific patterns. God is training your spirit to recognize what your logic keeps defending. Discomfort is discernment maturing. It is God saying, your future cannot survive here. If discomfort keeps returning, it is not because God is indecisive. It is because you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to correction and peace. The other leads to destruction and regret. God has already spoken. The only thing left is obedience. Discomfort often appears before exposure. Before God reveals what is hidden, He first disturbs your spirit so you are not shocked when the truth comes to light. Many people experience unease long before betrayal is uncovered, before motives are revealed, before situations unravel. That discomfort is God preparing your heart for separation. He warns you internally before He allows things to break externally. When peace leaves first, it is because protection is shifting. God understands that sudden revelation can damage the soul if it comes without preparation. That is why discomfort is gradual. It stretches your awareness, softens your dependence, and weakens unhealthy attachments before the truth arrives. If God revealed everything at once, many would collapse under the weight of it. So He uses discomfort as training, as emotional armor, as spiritual conditioning. What feels unsettling is actually strengthening you for what is coming. This is why some relationships begin to feel strange before they end. Conversations lose depth. Trust feels fragile. Your spirit becomes guarded without effort. God is pulling you back before harm reaches you fully. Discomfort is distance being created on a spiritual level before it manifests physically. God does this to limit the damage. What He allows you to feel now is far less painful than what you would experience if He remained silent. Many people ask God for signs. Not realizing discomfort is already a sign. It is the warning light before the engine fails. It is the inner resistance before the collapse. When something is not aligned with God's will, your spirit will reject it long before your mind understands why. That rejection is not negativity, it is wisdom. God designed your spirit to sense danger even when your logic is still negotiating. Discomfort also exposes self-deception. It reveals where you are rationalizing what God is resisting. You may say, "It's not that bad," while your spirit refuses to rest. You may say, "I can manage this," while your peace continues to erode. God is not asking you to manage misalignment. He is asking you to leave it. The longer you stay, the louder the warning becomes, because destruction does not announce itself kindly. Ignoring discomfort does not make it go away. It numbs your discernment. Over time, what once felt wrong begins to feel normal. That is the most dangerous stage. When God's warning no longer bothers you, destruction is no longer far. It is already forming. Discomfort is meant to keep you awake. Once you sleep through it, consequences take over the role of instruction. So, if your spirit feels uneasy, even when everything looks stable, don't dismiss it. God is preparing you, protecting you, and positioning you to escape what your eyes cannot yet see. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your early rescue. Discomfort becomes most intense when delay turns into disobedience. There is a point where God's gentle warnings begin to feel heavier, not because he is angry, but because time is running out. The longer you remain in a place he has already warned you about, the more urgent the discomfort becomes. Peace no longer flickers. It disappears. Clarity feels blocked. Progress stalls. This is not coincidence. It is containment. God is restricting movement because advancement in the wrong direction would multiply destruction. At this stage, discomfort often shows up as repeated obstacles. Plans fail without explanation. Doors refuse to open. Efforts feel forced instead of flowing. God is not resisting you. He is resisting the path you insist on staying on. When alignment is lost, grace no longer feels effortless. Everything becomes heavy because you are carrying what you were never meant to carry this long. God blocks momentum to prevent disaster. Many people confuse this season with spiritual attack, when in reality it is divine restraint. God is saying, if you keep going this way, you will break something that cannot be repaired. So he slows you down. He frustrates your efforts. He allows dissatisfaction to grow. This is mercy disguised as inconvenience. What feels like delay is often divine prevention. Discomfort at this level also reveals fear of change. You may sense clearly what God wants you to release, but letting go feels terrifying. So you linger, you negotiate, you postpone obedience. But God knows that partial obedience still leads to full consequences. Staying too long in what God has already warned you about turns discomfort into discipline. Not punishment, but correction strong enough to wake you up. There are moments when God allows discomfort to become public. Others begin to notice your unrest. Your energy shifts. Your joy fades. This exposure is intentional. God removes your ability to hide the warning because secrecy would keep you stuck. When God exposes unrest, he is forcing movement for your survival. Silence would have been more comfortable, but comfort would have destroyed you. Discomfort is God's last invitation before consequence. It is his way of saying, choose wisdom while you still can. Destruction is never sudden. It is the final stage of ignored warnings. Every collapse has a history of discomfort that was dismissed, minimized, or postponed. God does not surprise his people with disaster. He prepares them to avoid it. If life feels unusually heavy, stalled, or resistant right now, ask yourself where you delayed obedience. God may not be closing doors to punish you. He may be closing them to save you. The discomfort you feel could be the final mercy before irreversible loss. There comes a moment when discomfort demands a decision. It stops being a background feeling and becomes a dividing line between obedience and destruction. God does not allow discomfort to linger endlessly without purpose. It is meant to push you into movement. By this stage, the warning is no longer subtle. You know something must change. The unease is constant. The lack of peace is undeniable. God has brought you to the edge of clarity, and neutrality is no longer an option. At this point, many people experience grief. not because something has ended, but because something must be released. Discomfort exposes what you are afraid to lose, even when God knows it is harming you. You mourn the idea of walking away. You mourn the future you imagined. You mourn the comfort of familiarity. But God is not asking you to lose something. He is asking you to escape something before it takes more from you than you can recover. Discomfort also tests trust. Obedience often requires acting before you understand how things will work out. God rarely explains the full plan when he warns through unease. He asks for faith, not certainty. The discomfort you feel is the tension between where you are and where God is calling you to be. That tension is uncomfortable because growth always is, but staying still is far more dangerous than stepping forward without all the answers. Many people wait for perfect conditions before obeying, not realizing that delayed obedience invites destruction. God will not always give you a peaceful environment to leave from. Sometimes he removes peace so you will finally move. The loss of comfort is intentional. God knows that if peace remained, you would stay too long. So he withdraws it, not to hurt you, but to free you. Discomfort sharpens discernment at this stage. You begin to see clearly what once felt confusing. Patterns become obvious. Red flags you ignored now clearly wave. God has removed the fog. What you do next matters deeply. Obedience now leads to healing. Resistance leads to consequences. The warning has done its job. The choice is yours. If you are standing at a decision point, feeling the weight of discomfort pressing you forward, don't retreat. God is not pushing you toward loss. He is guiding you toward survival. What you release now will save you from what would have destroyed you later. When obedience finally happens, discomfort begins to lift, not all at once, but enough to remind you that God was never against you. The moment you choose alignment, peace slowly returns, clarity breathes again, and your spirit feels lighter even if your circumstances have not yet improved. This is how you know the warning was real. God does not reward obedience with instant comfort. He restores direction first, and direction is more valuable than relief. Many people expect relief before obedience, but God often reverses the order. He restores peace after surrender, not before. When you step away from what he warned you about, you may still feel loss, uncertainty, or temporary instability, but the heavy discomfort, the kind that drains life and joy, begins to fade. That is confirmation. You didn't imagine the warning, you responded to it. God's goal was never to scare you, but to spare you. The discomfort you felt was evidence of his involvement in your life. Silence would have meant abandonment. Warning means care. God intervened because your future mattered too much to let you destroy it unknowingly. What felt like disruption was actually rescue in progress. Looking back, you begin to recognize how close destruction really was. You see how staying longer would have cost you peace, purpose, or even your identity. God did not exaggerate the danger. He revealed it just enough for you to escape. That is grace, and grace often feels uncomfortable before it feels liberating. This is why discernment must be honored early. The more you listen to discomfort, the less pain you need to learn. God teaches gently first. Only when warnings are ignored do consequences become the teacher. Obedience keeps the lessons small. Resistance makes it severe. If God is warning you through discomfort right now, don't wait for destruction to prove him right. Listen while escape is still possible. Discomfort is not the end, it is the signal, and obedience is the doorway back to peace.